Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of The Bills Guys, presented by the Buffalo Fanatics. I'm still used to saying podcasting network, even though we are just straight up Buffalo Fanatics, coming live to you on Facebook, YouTube, Sportscaster, and Twitter. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on Twitter at Judge Mathis, joined as always by my co-host Dave Tilton. You can find him on Twitter at Tilt Money, and we are joined by a special guest today. The first player we have ever had on the Bills Guys vidcast, podcast, whatever you want to call it. So if at any point in the show I just pass out because I'm so nervous, I do apologize. But thank you for joining us, Reid. We have Reid Ferguson, the Buffalo Bills long snapper. How are you doing today?
Guys, what an honor. First one.
Yeah, first guest. It's great.
I wasn't aware. That's great news.
And it's funny. I was mentioning before the show, I think I messaged you and asked you to be on the show like right around the time of your wedding. So this is your first official podcast as a married man. So I guess we should be ones who are honored as well. I don't know if you remember this or not, but a couple of months ago, before we got these fancy backdrops and we were on like 4 different things, Buffalo Fanatics asked me to do a Twitter only show. And I literally did it from my home office, like holding my phone up like this. And you got on there one of the times, and I was like talking about Josh Allen or something, and all it says on the bottom was like Snapflow has joined. I was immediately like, and I like lost it. I'm like, well, a Buffalo Bill is watching me right now, so like I better watch what I'm saying. Like, and you were like commenting back, and I was just like about to pass out, my phone in my hand. So so that's where I saw the genesis behind asking you to be on the show, because you're pretty active on social media. I've seen you on a couple other podcasts, and you came and were gracious enough to watch like 5 minutes of my very old Twitter show. So we really do appreciate it. And first thing we want to talk to you about today is your brother, actually. No offense to you, but we want to talk to you about your brother. First of all, I'm super jealous that I think you got to play a year with Eddie O as the defensive line coach there in LSU, but Ed Ogeron is just like a personal hero of mine. Your brother got to play for him for, I think, 4 years, and he got the Natty. So I think it's only right that you need to win the Super Bowl with the Buffalo Bills in order to even it up in the Ferguson household, right?
It's only right. Yeah, it's only right. Yeah, he all props to him. He actually just moved down to Miami today. He left, moved out of my humble abode here in Atlanta, Georgia. So he's headed south, but super excited for him. He's earned it. He worked super hard. We did pretty much all of our training and snapping and stuff together this off season here in Atlanta. So he earned it. Obviously proud of him for getting drafted and doing the combine and the Senior Bowl and stuff and all that good stuff. But he's going to crush it down there. He's going to do super well. Try to give him as much advice as I could. He's our old special teams coordinator is down there with him, so I was able to give him a little advice on how he kind of coaches and gets his points across and stuff. So, but yeah, good. Happy for him, and we'll see him twice a year, 2-0, and go 2-0 against him.
Are you like sort of when he was drafted to the Dolphins? Like, obviously you're happy for him, but were you hoping that he didn't, like, he went to an NFC team or something like that? Or are you more like happy because you get to see him twice a year now that he's in the division, or does it really not matter at all to you?
I think, I was definitely rooting for I guess in division, Miami was really the only contender. But I think somewhere that would be good for my parents because they travel to every game. So something that fit that criteria. And I get, being in division, now that he's in division, that's 2 games a year that they don't have to worry about. So yeah, it was best of both worlds, I guess.
Awesome. And we want to thank Joshua supporting Buffalo Fanatics with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Joshua. We really appreciate it. And Dave, we're going to let you lead off with the first question. We're going to go in depth with some long snapping questions here for Reid.
Yeah. So this is kind of the first obvious question we need to ask you, right? Because you and your brother are both long snappers. And I guess the obvious question is, how does one become or evolve into a long snapper? Now it's obviously in the family. Do you start out like, how do you start out with that? What position did you kind of start out playing, and how did you eventually kind of become, a long snapper and realize, hey, like this is something I could do like at a very high level?
So started in 8th grade. The kid that was snapping and playing center on offense got hurt. I started playing football in 5th grade. Kind of did like tight end, defensive end. Wasn't really playing a lot. Didn't I think my whole career I've had 3 passes thrown at me and I have 0 receptions. So fun stat for you there. But no, when he got hurt, my dad kind of approached me, and and it was right before I was going into high school, so it was kind of a turning point of whether I was going to continue playing and putting effort into doing the whole football thing. So we started practicing, kind of put our best foot forward, watched some videos on YouTube, and I did it for the 8th grade team that year. Won the job. And then once that year passed, I started going to some camps around the country, some in Georgia as well. There's one guy that runs camps around the country, but started going to his camps and really started improving. Snapped freshman team in 9th grade, and then we moved schools after my freshman year, and I snapped 3 years for the varsity team. So I guess maybe the latter, the early to middle part of my junior year, I started realizing that there was strong potential for me to pursue, something in college, getting a scholarship. And I got a couple offers, LSU, Tennessee, and San Diego State, but I wasn't really, too pumped up about flying all the way out there to play, college football. So I had done LSU and Tennessee's summer camp, like their summer kicking snapping camps for a few years. I think that was probably huge for me, getting in front of their eyes. But I ended up going to LSU. I'd do it all over again if I could. But it was a great experience, and don't regret any part of it. But that's kind of spark notes on how I got started snapping.
Yeah, you sort of mentioned camps in your response there. My next question to you was going to be: is there a lot of like long snapper specific camps? Like you always see like the Madden Passing Academy, and you see all these wide receivers getting together. Is there ever like camps that are specifically catered to long snapping? Because it's not the most sort of I don't want to say glamorous of positions, but it's not something that I think a lot of people think about. And if not, like you two got a dynasty going down there with you and your brother. Maybe you guys could get started, with starting like long snapping academies and turn into like a Jordan Palmer when you retire from the game.
That's right. Yeah, there's one. There's two main camps that kind of go on around the country that kind of have a cornerstone on the market. Chris Rubio, who I went to for the most part, and then Cole's kicking and snapping. They both do the same thing. They both do kicking, punting, snapping. A lot of they'll do regional camps around the country, and then they'll both have big national events. So it's a little similar in that way, the way that they run their camps and things like that. So, but yes, to answer your question, there are snapping specific camps, and I definitely took advantage of those throughout high school.
So these camps, obviously you're not just going to them and like fans kind of look, watch on TV and probably casually just like kind of see, you snap the ball back, and like Steve said, not so glamorous because like no one really says anything when it goes well, right? They just kind of expect it to be there every time. So what are take us inside sort of the room, and like what are some of the intricacies around long snapping maybe that the casual fan might not be aware of? And you've been long snapping now for a while. What kind of rule changes have you seen that have affected you over the years, maybe for the better with player safety and things like that, that maybe some of the fans aren't even aware of?
Yeah, so I'll answer the second part first in terms of the rule changes. I think it was a pretty important rule because a couple of years ago they changed the leaping rule,
Right. Yeah.
where you can't get a running start, that kind of thing. You have to be on the line of scrimmage, and you have to jump and clear the person. So you've really seen a big decline and even the attempts of guys trying to do that, just because it's not easy to clear. I'm about average 6'2", out there, so it's not easy to clear just your average football player without getting a running start. So that's really improved for player safety on us. But that's really the only rule change I think that would apply to us. As far as the intricacies with snapping, I was thinking about this question before the show. I think two things come to mind, and I don't have a football on me, but the feel of the ball is something that's super important for specialists, because and I don't know, a lot of fans might not know this, but the quarterbacks get to work their balls in all week. So they get to throw with them and practice with them and practice and all that kind of stuff, and really get a feel for the ones that they'll use on game day. And the specialist, basically on game day, we have every team's got a ball guy, and it's usually equipment manager, and they'll talk every year. They get with the specialist. We tell them how we want the footballs conditioned before the games, how slick we want it, how rough we want it, whatever it might be. Every guy's different. But before the game, that kickoffs at 1:00, our equipment guy will go with the refs. Each team, the two guys, one guy from each team will meet with one of the refs in a room with 6 footballs. Each team will get 3. For the home team, they label each ball 1 through 6. The home team gets 1, 3, and 5. Away team gets 2, 4, 6. And then you basically have the equipment guys have an hour to condition the footballs into get them game ready. So that's a pretty interesting part, I think, for me, or I guess for the fan to kind of give some insight to the fans, because I can't imagine a lot of people are aware of that unless they maybe have played or have talked to somebody, that has told. I guess that's told them that maybe, but that's something that's super important for us, and the refs try to do a pretty good job of getting our team's balls to us, whenever we're on the field. So obviously, our balls are labeled 1, 3, 5 if we're playing at home, and the away team's 2, 4, 6. So every time we go out for a punt, or every time we kick a field goal or have a kickoff, we want the number 1 ball, because that's the best ball out of our bunch of 3. Our guy, out of an hour, our guy will probably spend, 30 minutes, 30 or 35 minutes on the first ball, because that's the one that we're going to use the most, and you want the best performance with that football. The number 2 ball might get, 20 minutes or 15 minutes, and he's going to get that as close to the number 1 as possible. And then the third ball is basically just out of the bag. They touch it up a little bit, but it is super slick. I mean, you really don't ever want to get down to that third football of your bunch. So the refs do a pretty good job of getting us our number 1 or number 2 ball based on home or away. We had some problems in Dallas last year with a ball going out of bounds, so they didn't give it back to us until the second half because they were confused on some rules. So it can get to be a big pain in the butt, because you've got guys like me who are real picky about that kind of stuff, and then Hauschka's pretty picky about it, just because he's it's coming off his foot different ways, and things like that. So I try to I'm over there in the ref's ear a little bit, whoever's throwing the ball in, making sure we get the right one, and kind of befriending our home sideline guy who holds the K balls all game. I'm trying to, talk him up before the game and making sure he gives us the right ones and all that kind of stuff. So, just playing the game a little bit, and trying to, set us up for, in the best position we can be in to be successful on the field. Because the ball's important, and then you get that 2 or 3 ball in there, and it's raining, and it's the wind's blowing sideways, and that is just a recipe for it's for something that's not very good. So that's probably that was the deepest, I think, that I intricacy of snapping that I could probably come up with. That's probably not a widely known thing.
That's fascinating. I gotta ask you though, do the kickers and snappers ever differ on their preferences when it comes to like conditioning?
Yeah, usually so in terms of the feel and conditioning of it, the kicker or the oldest guy will usually get preference. So thankfully, Steven and I are mostly on the same page.
Yeah.
But he's not extremely picky. He just wants the number 1 ball when we're out there as much as possible. So I'm usually the one that's pretty picky with our guy about, and our guy does a great job. But I'm usually the picky one about, what panel, there's 4 panels on the football. So what panel I always snap with. The logo is never in my hand, so I always snap with the air pump in my hand. So that kind of thing. So I want those panels that I touch to be perfect, and he knows where I hold it, so he makes sure those panels are perfectly how I want them, and it's been great. But that's the nitty-gritty of the snapping position.
It's absolutely fascinating that there's that much detail that goes in it. The last question on this one. Do you guys ever like fans keep the ball? Like, how does that work? Like, do you ever like go through all 3, or like, do you ever get the balls? Do you always get the balls back, or like, do you ever? Does that ever happen?
Yeah, we had, and I'm trying to think of when it happened. And Steven, he's probably not gonna see this, but Hauschka, I think one field goal, maybe it was super windy, might have missed the upright and went into the stands, and somebody kept it, and it was a home game, and somebody kept it. It was an opposing fan. We couldn't get it back. They wouldn't trade for an old ball. So we lost our number 1 ball, and and when that happens, you just gotta accept it, and that's when that's when spending that time on the 2 ball. Or the 3 ball, I guess, for a home game really comes into play, and that's when it's super important.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I'm going to skip the obvious comment or question, which would be, do you always end up getting the 3 ball when you're in New England? I'm going to skip past that one. I'm not going to ask it.
It'd be the 4. It'd be the 4 because they'd be away.
I don't want to get you in any trouble.
Ball.
But
I'll refrain.
Don't let him incriminate.
We'll keep that question in the DMs.
But my suggestion to you, like, the quarterback always gets these offensive line, like the Rolexes and the ATVs and all those crazy things. It seems like you got to get the ball guys some things. You got to hook the ball guys up with some swag.
We try to pay him. Yeah, we try to pay him after every 3 or 4 games throughout the season, just because we really appreciate how good of a job he does for us. But it's we take care of him around Christmas time, so. Those guys definitely feel loved for sure, or at least I hope they do.
Sorry, we got a comment here. Pierre says, thanks for the breakdown, Reid. Awesome insight. So we appreciate that super chat from Pierre. And my next question to you is, you just talked about all these crazy intricacies of long snapping, all these things that maybe people don't see, casually watching on TV. Myself and Dave, we are huge Madden guys. I don't know how big of a gamer you are yourself, but we are big Madden guys. So you probably get this question every single show you're on. But knowing all the intricacies of long snapping, how pissed are you that when you hop onto Madden, you're like a 39 rated overall tight end? Like, how mad does that make you?
That's a great question. And I'm thinking back to like week, I don't know, it was pretty late in the season, and Barry Sanders Jr. showed up at our facility, and he was one of the Madden adjusters. And
really?
I took my turn. Josh was in his ear about I think his throwing power or something. And
it wasn't 100.
I don't really. Yeah, exactly. I mean, how much higher can you go from 99 or whatever? Disclaimer: I really don't play Madden that much. I enjoy the franchise mode and stuff like that, but I'm way bigger on like FIFA and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I was in his ear a little bit. I had to give him a hard time just because they don't even have a position for snapper. And I get it, but I get people. People send me like tweets and stuff when Madden comes out. They're like, "Oh, send me a screenshot of like franchise mode," and they're saying, "Oh, well, Madden's trying to get me to cut you first round of cuts and stuff." I'm like, it's as they should, because I'm a 37 rated overall tight end. Why would you ever keep me on the roster?
The one thing they can do, if they're not willing to not make you a tight end, if you go into the depth chart, they actually have expanded depth charts now with like nickel corners and, pass rush in like sub-package linebackers and all that stuff. Long snapper is one of those positions now on those expanded depth charts, but you're still like a 39 overall long snapper. Dawson Knox has a higher rating than you. Like, that's just insulting.
Yeah, and it is, honestly. But I think I'm chalking it up to the people at Madden just not knowing what they're looking at. I mean, that's pretty much – there's a reason that snappers don't have like a PFF grade or anything like that, because guys that unless you have spent time studying with a position, you don't know what you're looking for, and that to no fault to them. That's just part of it. They don't. 99.9% of the football watching community doesn't know the difference between a good snap and a bad snap if it doesn't go over the punter's head, right? Mm-hmm. So, that's my stance on that.
All right. Well, we're going to shift now from long snapping to team culture. And, I'm an educator. I'm a teacher. I think I mentioned that before the show started. And I was really on to the sort of like the growth mindset that your coach, Sean McDermott, sort of adheres to. And I've totally stolen his quote, "Respect the process." It's all over my classroom. Like, I'm addicted to culture and questions like that. So my question to you is summarize Sean McDermott's approach to the locker room and to the team and his overall philosophy, not from an X's and O's standpoint, but from a culture standpoint. And is it drastically different from other, pro and college coaches that you've had in the past?
So first, can you tell the first question again?
What is Sean McDermott's sort of philosophy? Like, not X's and O's, but just the culture aspect.
Yeah. So, he, off the field, he is one of a kind. He's a great coach. Always keeps it light. But I mean, it's ever since he and Bean got here, they have done an incredible job of instilling this culture in the guys here on the team. And you saw it the first year and a half, I guess. I mean, you guys might know better than me the amount of turnover there was on the roster because they were trying to find guys that fit their culture. And then you saw that it fits just into last season where I saw the Bills, we used the least amount of players on an active roster throughout the whole season. And you can see where this team is going. So it's a clear, those guys have a clear picture, upstairs, I'll say upstairs and in that administration area of things, of what they want on this team, the guys that they want on this team, and how they want us to operate. And it's become clear. They make it perfectly clear to us, and that's something that we appreciate. That everybody's transparent with each other. We have clear goals, across the board. And then to get to the second, to your follow-up question, it's not like any other locker room, I guess, that I've ever been in. I played for Coach Miles for 4 years at LSU, and he was very much like Coach McDermott in the term I guess the term that you would use is like a player's coach. He's very relatable to the players, kept it light. Always tried to trying to have a good time, but knew when to be serious and get down to business. And I think that has, that's reflective of both of their career. Les Miles obviously, extremely successful in the college game, but Coach McDermott, I think it's clear to see what we're building here in Buffalo, and we're going to be successful here for a while. So, yeah, I mean, I hope that answered, but yeah, I think it's clear to see that the culture that they have been building over the past couple of years is something special.
So on the flip side of that, right, and maybe this doesn't really apply to you because between Les and between Coach McDermott, you probably haven't really been in situations like this, but can you tell, or have you ever been, can you tell like when a team you're playing against, or just by the interactions with opposing players, can you tell when there's like a cultural kind of, I guess, issue in another team's sort of organization just by, on the field playing against teams, just by how players are, or like seeing how other coaches sort of talk to opposing players when you're on the field? Can you get a sense of culture from just playing against another team and how their organization is?
Yeah, I think you can, or at least I can, and that's a good question. I don't want to get into any too many details, but yeah, I mean, you do cross teams and you do cross players and coaches that it's clear that they don't run a tight ship, and that it's plain and simple. I think it's important for it's top down leadership in my mind. It's important for the head coach to be to drive the boat, I guess, in that sense, and to really put a firm foot into what they believe and the goals that they're trying to achieve, and you can see it year in and year out. A lot of players and coaches that either don't get along or aren't on the same page on the field and off the field and all this kind of stuff. And that's when a lot of the drama comes into play. And, it's unfortunate to see for a lot of places, but, it makes you not take for granted what we have here in Buffalo.
Do you find that you see that more on teams, maybe not without obviously mentioning specifics, but do you see that more on teams that have that are just like losing teams? They're not very good teams.
I mean, yeah, that would certainly make sense. Yeah, I mean, it's when you have a lot of individuals and egotistical players, I think that creates a pretty big problem for a lot of guys. I think that's probably that's the root of some problems across the league. But when you get everybody on the same page and you get everybody playing for one goal and everybody's pushing and pulling their own weight and doing their job on and off the field, I think that is where you start to see some success.
We have a super chat here from Scott. We won't hit at the ball deflation question because, like I said, no offense, Scott, we just don't want to get anyone in trouble here, especially Reid. But your next question is also a pretty good question. But how do you assure that the laces are correct? Like when you're snapping a football and maybe it's easier when you're snapping a football because you get to hold it. But how do you assure it gets correct into the holder's hand, whether it be the punter when he's punting or the holder when he's holding it for field goals?
Yeah, great question. And a lot of that comes down to practice and doing it over and over again so many times. But there's, every snapper is different. Every guy throws it back a different speed. Every guy has a different feel on the ball. For field goals, for a punt snap, I'll hold my fingers on the laces for 15 yards, because it doesn't really matter where the laces are for the punter. It would be near impossible to try and get laces every time on a punt. But for an 8-yard field goal snap, it's pretty easy to get those laces, almost every time when you're snapping it at 8 yards. So it really just comes down to just getting your release correct and where you're letting the ball go from when you throw it through your legs, and just making sure you let it go at the same time and at the same speed every time, and making sure that the holder is catching it in the same spot every time, because that makes a difference as well. Whether if he's reaching out for it or catching it more into his body, that can make a difference on the spin as well.
All right, we got
good question.
We got a couple of super chats here. I want to thank Davion for the 199 super chat. He says #Bills Mafia. I want to thank Randy Bobandy, $10 Canadian. He says, "Let's go Bills." Appreciate the work, boys. I don't know if you guys Trailer Park Boys fans. That's Randy Bobandy, a character from Trailer Park Boys. First of all, R.I.P. Mr. Leahy. Second, you can buy a lot of cheeseburgers, Randy, for that $10. So we really do appreciate that super chat right there. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. All right, let's dive into a couple other topics here. The first one is Josh Allen. I think a lot of the viewers want to know about, the guy that we're hoping, that I think you guys probably, it seems like you feel like in the locker room is your franchise quarterback. What is Josh Allen's style of leadership, and how does it compare with quarterbacks in the past? Because a lot of people in the media like to point out that, Tyrod Taylor, he was a great leader. He was just a completely different kind of leader than Josh Allen.
Yeah, and I guess playing with both guys, it's I can probably attest to that. Tyrod was, I'd say he's and this has nothing to do with Josh, but Tyrod's one of the first, one of the hardest workers in the league. I'd say, he takes his job very seriously, and I think that's a reason that he has stuck around so long, is because he trains so hard and he cares so much about it, that he's willing to do anything. And one of the first in the building, last to leave, one of those type of guys. So, but Josh, on the other hand, he's very similar, but different in his own ways. I think that he is very much more. Or he's better at connecting, I think, on a more personal level with all of his teammates, and I think that's what makes a lot of the guys buy into him and love him so much. And I think that's what makes guys follow him on the field, because it's having the quarterback. I mean, quarterback on the football field is I think in all of sports is the most important position of any team in any sport. Is the court. If you have a good quarterback, you are going to win games. If you don't, and vice versa. If you don't have a good quarterback, you're not going to win games. But if you have a good quarterback, like I firmly believe that's the first step, to even stepping on the field. So from a leadership perspective, he's had guys buy in from the get-go. So, and it's easy to see that on a game day. I mean, guys are everybody celebrates with each other. He's fired up on the sideline, all that good stuff. And that's what I think that's what really makes guys buy into him and buy into his leadership.
On the leadership front, just a little bit of a nuanced question here is a quarterback can be really good, right? And how important, or what differentiates, I guess, like two equal quarterbacks, one both being really good, but maybe one who's not such a vocal leader, or takes more of like a backseat from a leadership perspective, to a guy who's more takes on that leadership role. How important that is, that actual intangible sort of leadership, or sometimes even tangible leadership quality, even if the quarterback's very good. How does that affect play on the field? How does that affect the locker room? And can you get away with just having a good quarterback, or does that quarterback really need to be sort of a natural leader for the team to really sort of reach that that step in elite status where they want to get to?
Yeah, great question. And I think the stats probably back it up to if the quarterback does have that leadership trait and everybody is buying into him, I think that's when you see these good teams take the next step to the next level. As much as I probably hate to say it, you look at a team like the Patriots and how good of a leader Brady has been for that team. I mean, guys buy into him. They trust him, all down the line to perform and to carry them through those late game situations. And so to answer your question, I think it's super important for guys to have that extra leadership ability, I guess, to kind of take that next step. And if you asked anybody on the team, on any team, they'd probably say the same thing. They definitely want their quarterback to have that extra edge to him, because I think when it comes to those late game situations, and you got to have. I mean, you look at the Dallas game last year in that 4th and 1 where he fumbled and fought and twisted his way to fourth and converted that 4th and 1. I mean, that kind of leadership and like fight that he showed on that play doesn't just grow on. It doesn't just show up in anybody. Like that's real. Like that doesn't just happen for anybody. So I think that's kind of when people saw that Josh really had something special inside of him, and kind of saw that we all buy into him.
Yeah, that actually kind of delves into our next question. You kind of answered that next question, because Zeke Elliott, he makes headlines every offseason, but he made some Bills specific headlines this offseason on Twitch when he called Josh Allen a beast. Speaking of that Dallas game. Someone said, how does it feel that Josh Allen had more touchdowns than you last year? And he goes, I don't care. Josh Allen's a beast. Like, that's what he said. And, it got Bills Mafia's attention. That was sort of my next question to you, was having a quarterback like Josh Allen, who's willing to sacrifice so much of his body on the football field and really lay it down on the line every single game. Do teammates take note of that kind of sacrifice from the quarterback position, or even any position in general?
Absolutely. And I mean, it's the fact that he's willing to do it is all that we need to know that he's willing. I guess I worded that wrong, but us knowing that he's willing to give it all on the field is all it takes, right, for us to buy in. And you look at the unfortunate situation last year where the Patriots game where the dude knocked him out. Like, yeah, it was a cheap shot, but the fact that he was willing to lower his shoulder and get that extra yard, that's what we love, and that's kind of what we're built on here in Buffalo.
Awesome. And then we actually have a comment here, which is going to build into our next topic. One of the newest members of the Buffalo Fanatics, contributor, one of the co-hosts of the Hoof podcast, Anthony Mangan, says, how much interaction has Reid been able to have with his new players in this sort of odd off season? And that sort of brings us to our next topic. We wanted to ask you about the specialists on the team and how much interaction. I think I've seen you working out with a couple of the players this offseason, correct?
Yeah, I was able to get with Vedvik. I can't say it in Norwegian, but like he can. But Corey, I call him Corey, Vedvik, and Tyler Bass. Yep, Tyler was in Columbia, South Carolina, about 3 hours east of me, and then Vedvik was in Birmingham, about 2 hours to the west. So right after the draft, we were able to get together probably 6 or 7 times on the weekends. They would drive into Atlanta, and we got together and had some good sessions. So super thankful for those guys, and really goes to show the work they're willing to put in.
So you weren't playing favorites. Bills Mafia now knows you weren't playing favorites. It had everything to do with location, correct?
That's right. Because I think Bojo was up in Buffalo, Hauschka was out in California, so it'd be a little tough for those guys to come in every weekend. But yeah, no, it was certainly not playing favorites for sure.
Tyler Bass, we've seen a lot of these viral videos on YouTube and Instagram and Twitter, and we kind of talked about this a little bit pregame show. Like you mentioned, you refused to let him kick those kicks when you were with him. I'm guessing it's because of injury. You didn't want to get him hurt. But
well, I told him, and I said you if you want to win the job, I said you're gonna have to be perfect between 35 and 45 yards. I mean, that's where a lot of the game is won, is those mid-range kicks. So I was trying to just keep him level-headed for the time being.
And like, is that something a lot of kickers can do? Is boot 75 yarders like that? Like, because I can imagine these guys are just some of the greatest. Like, I don't like, people don't think kickers and punters are athletes, but what the way their lower body, the way they sculpt their lower body, and what they're able to do with their legs is absolutely incredible. Is kicking a 75-yard field goal like that something a kicker can naturally, just most kickers can naturally do? Or does this kid truly have a really special leg?
I think it's probably more of the latter. I think he does have a special leg. But I think, I mean, if you make it to the pro level, most guys are able to kick those longer kicks. I think, if you took the average Joe that kicks in the league for a handful of years, I think that most of them could probably make a 60-plus yarder. Some might have to have a little bit of wind help, but get plenty of that in Buffalo. So, I think he does have a special leg, but he's got to be able to prove his accuracy, and that was part of what I was trying to instill in him. If he wanted to win the job, he'd have to be near perfect, because Hauschka is certainly going to do his part.
Dave, you want to jump into the next line of questioning?
Yeah, I think so. We're gonna ask some fun ones now about the teammates, right? The Bills teammates. So we've got a couple of fun questions lined up here. So first question about teammates. Buffalo Fanatics guys, we're all big golfers. We've been talking about doing a tournament, Buffalo Fanatics tournament. We've seen Josh on the links playing. We saw him playing with Sam a few times. So on the Bills team, give us a few of who are the best golfers on the team. Do you guys get to go out much? I know during quarantine, it's been kind of one of the only things that we've really been able to do is hit the links. So who are the best golfers on the team?
So off the top of my head, I know DeMarco and Andre Roberts both golf a lot. I think Andre is pretty close to a scratch.
Wow.
If I'm not mistaken. And I just learned that he didn't start golfing until he was in the league. So, he's been playing for, maybe 7 or 8 years, I guess.
I think he honed
which
his
is
game
pretty
out here in the
amazing.
desert.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing if you ask me. But Pat DeMarco is pretty good. I think Barkley gets out, Josh gets out, some of the coaches get out, but there's a handful that play pretty regularly.
Are you a golfer?
Top golf. Does that count?
Hey, that counts.
Hey,
I like to play. I get asked a lot. Just because I'm a specialist, I get asked a lot because all the specialists play. Hauschka plays. That's another one to add to the list. But I like playing. I'm not good, and I don't have my own clubs. So if I had clubs, I'd probably get out more and be better. But I don't have clubs, so.
All right. Well, I'll ask you one that's maybe more up your alley then, because you mentioned FIFA earlier. So who are the biggest gamers on the team, and who's your biggest, I guess, your biggest competition when it comes to FIFA on the sticks?
Yeah. So a lot of guys do the Twitch streaming, like Feliciano, Dawkins. I think Isaiah McKenzie gets on there, maybe Poyer and a handful of other guys. But I'll say this with complete humility: nobody can touch me in FIFA because nobody else plays FIFA.
Okay.
A lot more guys played my rookie year because Rex let us have the gaming systems in the locker room, which in retrospect is probably wasn't a good thing, but. My claim to fame is I beat Reggie Bush twice in FIFA. He never beat me. So,
and is he a self-proclaimed
claim to fame?
Can I say something else?
I don't know if he claims that he's good. I thought he was decent. Like, he had definitely played before, so I thought he was okay. But Tyler's pretty good. Tyler Bass, he's pretty good. But I am definitely. they don't have like any kind of like league-wide tournament, but I am pretty confident that I would wreck some people.
I have this to say. You have two things up on Reggie Bush, because I also believe he rushed for -1 yards that year. So you may have you had more rushing yards than Reggie Bush that season as well.
That is correct. And so did our punter, Colton Schmidt. I think he had some more rushing yards too, but he always brought that up for some reason. But yeah, no, it's yeah, for sure.
All right, we are in. Yeah, we are Buffalo Bill. We're not none of us, ironically, are in Buffalo, but we are in a Buffalo Bills themed chat. So this question has to be asked. I think, who would win in a chicken wing eating contest in that Buffalo Bills locker room?
Oh my goodness, it has to be one of the linemen. I mean, Deion Dawkins would put up a good fight, I think, against anybody. I think Mitch Morse probably is another good option. Feliciano, Ty Nsekhe maybe. Gosh, Harrison Phillips would probably be a good option. I think just off the top of my head, I mean, any of those big dudes can put away some freaking food, man. I'll tell you what, it's unbelievable.
Are any of your teammates? Listen, this is just something that has to be said. Normally, I don't like to answer this question, but I'm honestly doing it just to piss off Rico. He hates this question, and he hates it when people ask. He's like, "Who cares? Who cares what dipping sauce people are using on their chicken wings?" But he's a sour cream guy, so I'm gonna call him out right now. One, he's a sour cream guy. Yeah, he dips his wings in sour cream. Yeah, yes, he is a noted sour cream dipper. Are there any ranch guys in the Bills locker room?
There's a ton.
What?
Because not a lot of them come from Buffalo.
True. Yeah. That's true. Oh my goodness.
I guarantee if you polled the locker room, not naming names, if you polled the locker room out of 53 guys on opening day, I bet you get 30 plus that say ranch.
Do those guys slowly get converted, or they just stay ranch guys? Like, have you been converted? Corey wants to know.
I don't even eat ranch or blue cheese on my wings. So, to answer your question, Corey Buffalo, I don't eat either. I usually go with like barbecue or something like that, like garlic Parmesan or something. I like medium wing. I'll eat medium wings or something. I have a weak spicy palate, so I can't really eat the hot wings. But I usually I don't dip ranch or blue cheese. But
I like the
if I had a choice, I'll do blue cheese just because I don't want the waiter to like look at me funny.
I got sort of a selfish question for you, because I have a couple of friends in Atlanta, and one of my goals has been to get out there to Atlanta when this whole pandemic is over. My favorite brewery, Sweetwater Brewery. I had it when I was in New Orleans. I love Sweetwater, so I want to get down to it. I want to get down to Atlanta, visit my buddies. What is like the best restaurant? Like it's barbecue down there, right, in Atlanta?
Yeah, barbecue, chicken and waffles. I mean, you name it.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like here.
Wow. Are you a burger fan?
I do love me a burger. We got In-N-Out here on the West Coast. I finally started eating In-N-Out.
Don't even start that nonsense. Whataburger's better. If you're gonna go to Atlanta, go to Vortex. They have great burgers. It also doubles as a comedy show. They have a stage in the back. So Vortex, and then Fox Brothers Barbecue is another great one.
All right,
that's probably my top two.
All right, nice. That's sweet. So I'm gonna go there and then wash it down with some Sweetwater, because like when I was in New Orleans,
the brewery's awesome.
Yeah, when I was in New Orleans, like everyone was all about the Purple Haze and everyone was about the Hurricanes. I had one sip of Sweetwater and I was just drinking it the whole weekend. It was
yeah, man. Purple Haze is my favorite. That's undefeated in my house.
I like Purple Haze is a good beer.
That's my favorite.
Beta, right. Yeah, that's good.
Here's a weird question. I'm not sure. I think you did a show with our man Casey Reid, and I told him to ask you this question. I don't know if he asked it or not, so I'm going to ask you again. I'm dying to know, what has more of an effect on the ladies of Buffalo, maybe even the ladies on the road? Is it Dawson Knox's curls, or is it Tommy Sweeney's stash? What are the ladies swoon for?
Dawson, no doubt.
Adam's not going to be happy.
I think Tommy is he has like Tommy is like a 2020 guy I'm sorry, I had it backwards. He is like a 1970s guy living in 2020. he rocks like the tie-dye shirts and like all that, like Metallica, like all that stuff. So he's awesome. But I would say definitely present day, I'd have to go with Dawson and the curls.
But Sweeney would have cleaned up at Woodstock.
Yeah.
I'm sure if Tommy Sweeney goes to like a Def Leppard concert, he would get a lot of play.
Yeah, yeah. I think he owns a couple Def Leppard t-shirts, so pretty sure I've seen him in the facility before.
That's great. So we talked about we know you're the best long snapper on the team. That's clear. We know you're the best FIFA player on the team. So what other kind of hobbies or leisure activities or competitions or whatever? What do you think is another thing maybe that you could say you're better at than any other person on the team?
I would say my grilling.
Oh, nice.
Is probably up there. I won't say the best because I haven't really I guess
what do you grill? What do you grill?
Competed with everybody. I mean, whatever. I did ribs earlier this like during quarantine. Steaks all the time, like a good porterhouse. Do some good burgers, like ranch burgers that are really, not blue cheese, but ranch. No, but anything. I just enjoy being out on the grill and whatever. Just that's kind of where I like to hang out.
Charcoal or propane?
Everything.
Nice.
I've got all.
Have that dual setup.
Yeah.
Grill gloves or no grill gloves?
I had to get gloves.
Yeah, do you use them?
Oh, I don't have any gloves.
Okay. What's a grill glove?
I should probably get some. I don't know. I've never seen that before.
So like if you got your like tongs and you're reaching in, like you don't have to worry about your hand.
Oh, okay. That's smart. Should probably think about that.
I don't know. I
need my hands for a living.
Yeah.
I don't know if you. I don't know if you have ever seen this, but it was honestly one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. Kirk Cousins was tweeting about his grilling, and he was like, "Oh yeah, out here cooking this delicious chicken, like." And it was like wrapped in tinfoil and had no seasoning on it. And he just got lit up on Twitter as like it was like the whitest thing you've ever seen in your entire life.
I'm so sure.
Cousin working a grill.
He needs somebody to go give him some tips or something. Unnecessary.
All right. The last question we have for you, and then if anyone else in the chats, they can get a few questions in now as well while we ask this last one here. Who is your locker around? Because I know Sean McDermott likes to mix it up. And are they good, locker room buddies?
Yeah, so next to me, I'm up against a wall, and then next to me is Jerry Hughes.
Yeah.
He is so funny. He's a great locker mate. And then on the other side of him is Quentin Spain. So, I mean, talk about a comedy show in the locker room. I mean, those guys just go back and forth, and it is just hilarious. But no, I mean, Jerry likes to point out to everybody that we're the only two left on the team now from the 2016 roster. So, we always have a good time.
So you two are like the legacies in the locker room, and they put you next to a wall. Like, is that a good spot in the locker room next to the wall?
I'm just like it's just how it's like sectioned off. Like I'm at the end of the row, I guess is what I should have said. So there's it's like me, Jerry, Quentin, and then there's an open locker, and then another section. So just in our section, I'm up against the wall, which is nice because I can lean up on it.
I don't know if you follow Quentin on Instagram, but he's done some slimming down this offseason. I think he's coming for your job.
He could be. He can have it. I'm not going to fight him on it. I wouldn't
right.
want to I wouldn't want to cross paths with Quinn. That dude's a beast.
Oh, we got a question from Elliot here. He says, "Who do you expect to be the breakout player on this Buffalo Bills team next season? Who's a guy that's just ready to take the world by storm?"
I mean, it's got to be the first name that comes to mind is probably Singletary. I know he had a pretty good last year, but I think Singletary is probably poised for a big season this year.
I very quietly last off season, I didn't scream it off the top of the roofs, but I was like, I'm gonna quietly say that this guy looks a little Alvin Kamara-ish when I saw him at training camp, just his ability to make plays at the second level and make guys miss and get out of the backfield. So it's gonna be fun. Do you expect him to get, especially with this COVID shortened off season and Zach Moss not having as much time to play, Sean McDermott's mentioned, I don't like to see my running backs run, 10, 12, I don't more than 10, 12 times a game. Do you think early on the season they might just let this guy loose and make him the workhorse, at least early in the season?
Yeah, I mean, if I sat in on offensive meetings, I'd probably be able to give you a better answer. But I'm pretty restricted to special teams only. But I mean, you know what? I mean, exactly what you said makes total sense. So I can only imagine they're going to give him the reins, for the most part. But I think everybody, if you're a Bills fan and you're watching this video, I think you're a pretty serious fan. So I think everybody that's seen Zach Moss footage of him playing at Utah is, that dude's a beast. So he's going to find his way on the field one way or another.
One of my favorite quotes of all. Well, first of all, I was a huge because I'm the Buffalo Fanatics draft guy. So I did scouting reports, I did our draft guide. Utah was my favorite college this year. They had so many players on defense and Brett Huntley and Zach Moss. And Dave, you still owe me a Utah polo because I told you we were drafting a Utah player.
You're supposed to send me the one you want.
Oh, that's right. This is actually my fault. But my favorite quote of all time, I think, from a draft prospect is Zach Moss saying that he wants to make people make business decisions. So that's one of my favorite.
That is a great quote.
Favorite lines from him. So we have one last comment here, and then if anyone wants to throw in another question, we could probably answer one more question before we go. I can't actually say the name of this user, but he's a regular. He's been here every show. Mr. F the Jets says, "I hate the Jets." So F the Jets, thank you again. At least once a show, he lets us know just how much he hates the New York Jets. So we really appreciate your love for the Bills and your hatred for the Jets. I'll tell you what.
I have an interesting.
Okay, all right, you can go.
I want to know what the texts back and forth were like, or what the reactions were like once you guys found out the Bills traded for Diggs.
I think it's probably the same as the fans. I think everybody was ecstatic. I mean, anytime you get a playmaker like that, it is always going to be a great move. So we were all pretty excited about that, for sure. Excited to see what he can do this year.
Yeah, I don't know how personally you want to give this question because Jerry's been pretty open about it, and he was really effective last year, but statistically in the box score, maybe you don't have to be specific about this too much about this question because Daniel asks how hurt was Jerry Hughes last season, but all the surgeries that these guys had at the end of the season, maybe you can answer this. It's like, what do people not understand about what NFL players play through on a weekly and yearly basis?
Yeah, and just out of respect for Jerry, I'll probably skip, just refrain from answering. But
yeah,
I guess in terms of throughout a whole season, I mean, these guys and all the respect in the world to them, they take a huge beating. I mean, 16 games plus preseason plus playoff games potentially if you make it. That is a serious grind, and it's amazing, and and the Bills. The Pagulas have done a great job they revamped our whole training room last year and gave us a ton of new stuff in the weight room too, and things like that, and recovery items and all that good stuff to help us as much as we can. And I think that it was clear that made a huge difference because last year we had, no real, significant injuries that caused anybody to miss a ton of time. So, just it's a testament to how hard our guys work, and all that good stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, it's those guys take a huge beating. So I think, I think for the most part, the fans understand that.
And CR, we're gonna I think end with this. He says, "Thanks for doing this, Reid. Go Bills." I got one last question for you, or it's
Sure.
kind of a joke here. The Bills locker room or the Bills training facility now looks like an SEC locker room and an SEC training facility. Huh? It's finally up to that.
Yeah.
I swear to God, I see like Alabama, LSU. These dudes, like, they're playing at Jerry World. Like, they have like all of these crazy things. The Buffalo Bills are living it up like the Bamas and the LSUs of the world. But
That's right.
My question,
yeah, it's pretty awesome over there.
my last question for you is, because we see these palaces like Jerry World and all these things. It used to be back in the day where opposing teams would throw the visitors in like the crappiest locker rooms to sort of play head games with them and to make them feel uncomfortable. Is that still a thing in the NFL? Or when you go into locker rooms, like visitors' locker rooms, is it, are they nice locker rooms?
Yeah, they're nice now, and I think there was an agreement in the CBA or something that basically the NFL PA came to an agreement and just said, look, let's treat everybody with a little bit of respect here, and just give them like ample supplies to get ready for a game day. And when you're competing at this high of a level now, it's such a huge part of the entertainment industry. You need to be at your best and look your best and whatever you need to do for game day. So, every away stadium that I've been to has done a good job of allowing us, enough room to operate and all that kind of stuff. So no complaints from me.
Nice. Before we head out, I just want to throw this graphic up here real quick. If you're looking for some Buffalo Bills gear, head over to bffanshop.com. You can get 10% off the already insanely affordable prices using the promo code BillsGuys. That's BILLSGUYS, 10% off using that promo code at bffanshop.com. And we might have to get with Pierre and Rico and see if we can get a Long Snappers Are People Too t-shirt, or maybe Long Snappers Are People Too Madden t-shirt over in the BF fan shop.
I should have worn my Mr. Process shirt. I just bought
a
while back.
You know what we should do? We should have like a long snapper and then just say like overall rating 39 with the 3 crossed out and then a 9 next to it.
There we go. All right. You go. There it is. All right. So thank you so much, Reid. We really appreciate it. Thank you to everyone in the comment section. This is twice now. Like the last time because we're also the producers of the show. I was super overwhelmed when we had like 5 guests on because I was like facilitating and I completely forgot to A, shout out our super chatters, and B, put the scroll at the bottom of the screen. And now I was so super intimidated having to interview you that I completely forgot to do it again. So to all of our super chatters out there, believe me, I appreciate all of you guys. We will put out that scroll at the bottom. We will make sure we hook our super chatters up. We will be doing our July giveaway soon. Over at the BF Fan Shop for all our super chatters. So thank all the super chatters. Thank you, Reid. Chris says you are the GOAT. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris.
To all of Bills Mafia. And we like to end every broadcast with a Go Bills. So I'll start, then Dave will go and let you close it out with a Go Bills. So go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.